Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Okay, the Australian way this time. Good day, everybody. Welcome. It's Atlantic Discuss. Yes, we're here again. So much happening in Nigeria. I know you guys are going to fry me. Nigeria. Yes, that's the largest concentration of Black people on the planet. And so much has been happening. You know, we had a state of emergency. Last week, I interviewed Professor Dinkalo on the day the state of emergency was declared. And I spoke to him in the morning, and the emergency was declared just 2 hours after. So if you watch the last interview, you probably look at it that Professor Dekalo had some sort of witchcraft, that I could see into the future. It was more or less predicting what was coming. And lo and behold, it was declared. And Nigeria is worse for it, actually. So today I'm bringing a friend, a brother, a fantastic scholar for that matter. His name is Michael Ade Oriade. He's going to be my guest today. Michael Ade Oriade, welcome to Atlantic Discuss.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to
He
be
has a
on.
doctorate too. So, but why he's here is this, he's a man of so many places. He's an IT guru, he's here there in Atlanta, Georgia. Works with Matter. But what makes him special is that apart from being an IT certified operator, he's a lead specialist where he works. He has been in politics in Nigeria. He has run for public office. He has practiced law. He's an authority on Nigerian politics, and he lives in diaspora. Let me just give you some snippets of what he is. He's a multifaceted professional with strong background in IT, audit, risk management, and compliance. That's basically what he does now. But in the past, he has practiced law in Nigeria. He has run for public office in 1999 and 2003. He's been a member of AD, he's been a member of PDP. So it's vital to a lot of things we want to discuss, because we want to look at from 1999 to today, what's happening, where we got it wrong, and where we are. Also, he was founder and president of Nigeria US IT Network. So you can imagine that's a pool of thousands of Nigerian IT professionals in North America. So he's a man that is a leader. He knows what it is to put people together. Ade Oriade, can we sustain the Fourth Republic?
Thank you very much, Ade. And
We're both Ades, right?
yeah. It's a great honor to share the same name with you. You're a great person, and I really appreciate the great work you do for our people and our nation. And to the larger viewership, thank you for tuning in. Yes, that is a very, very powerful question. I don't know about the Republic. My focus has always been on sustaining Nigeria. And it seems to be very dicey. There's so much that keeps us up at night, and particularly the way the Nigerian nation is being led or has been led for quite some time. And it's so disconcerting that we seem to be getting it wrong at every intersection, and that is worrying. There's cause for worry. The Fourth Republic is shaky, and we hope that things turn around. I try to be as optimistic as possible, but there's just little to be optimistic about with this trajectory.
So you think we can sustain it?
If there's so many ifs, actually. One, I'll see this opportunity.
What are the ifs?
Yeah. I want to see this opportunity to say a big kudos to the young people, the resilient people of Nigeria. That is particularly the young people, the Nigerian youth. They have taken up this challenge, and they have taken so much risk over the last couple of years to try to knock Nigeria back on track. They've not been able to achieve what they set out to achieve, but you must give them the necessary the well-deserved kudos. What I don't understand is the kind of focus, almost unanimous focus on Nigerians who want a better Nigerian. They now cede this responsibility to the young Nigerians. Yes, we know they play a vital role, but they should not be left to carry this burden by themselves. Why can't the older generation join in this struggle? If fathers and mothers of this youth had joined them during the NSAS protest, the situation may be different today. So I think they're being overburdened. The expectations are too high, and they need all the support they can get. They want a better future, but it is also the responsibility of our generation to support that aspiration, because we put them in this nasty place that they are today. There is absolutely no future for the Nigerian youth in that country. That is the truth. We grew up at a time when Nigeria was functioning, at least barely, but we had a lot of hope. The average Nigerian youth doesn't have any hope at this point in time. So we should join in that struggle. We shouldn't leave it to them. I don't see why we should just keep saying, youth, you have to go and fight for your future. We put them in that situation. I think it was our elder statesman or Nobel laureate who said their generation was a wasted generation.
Mm.
That was a generation before ours. Ours is even worse. Our generation is worse than that generation. And we have not done enough to make the situation better for our children. So I would want to call on our own generation to start to play our role, to support them. If the young people of Nigeria have taken the challenge to lead this struggle, we should be behind them. We should be behind them. And that I'm not talking about just the men, not just the fathers, the mothers as well. Because we should bear responsibility for the situation those kids are facing.
Okay, so you say join them. Join them how? Where? I mean,
however way.
you're in the United States.
Advocating. No, you see, we see protest around the world. It's not just young people who protest.
Absolutely.
Older people also join. It shouldn't be different in Africa. I know it was the same thing in Kenya the other time. It was just young people. And that's why some of these trigger-happy law enforcement agents find it very convenient to unleash mayhem on them. But when they see older people and they see that there is a, unanimous force around this idea of wanting to build a better Nigeria, I think they would be reticent in carrying out those orders by these bad leaders who ask them to go and attack our young people. They can't be killing our young people and we fold our arms and we keep sending them out, in harm's way. We have to join. It is a national calling. We all should bear responsibility for this, for turning Nigeria.
Okay, let's do this. Atlanta discuss is a discussion. Yeah. So sometimes we also have, a contribution to the topic of the day. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I just, Now, I'll tell you, the generation of Wole Soyinka, Obasanjo, my father, those people, all of them, I'm convinced are the problem of Nigeria. They created this mess. Okay. A lot of them went to school on scholarship abroad, pro bono, on a platter of gold. They came back. Some of them, the first job they got was a government job, not mid-level position, high-level position when they came back. I know someone like Bolage, fantastic guy, Cicero, former attorney general, was a minister in the Western region at 20-something. A lot of those guys in the military, became governor, the rest is history, and they became commissioners, ministers, and so on and so forth. But the question I asked them, that I will ask an OBJ today, that I will ask Wole Soyinka, possibly other people of that generation is, what did they give back? They got the best of Nigeria. Pre-independent, immediately post-independent, they gave nothing back. Nothing. What they have done is to complicate, the subsequent generation, what they have done is to complicate our own lives. The way they parented us is different from the way we are parenting our kids. We don't give our children option of medicine or engineering to study. You understand? Those kids are different. You understand? Now, we were a bit subservient, even very subservient. We listened. So the guys behind us, they are not the listening type. So it's a completely different ball game. Now, the issue is that we have something that looks like a democracy, which clearly is just democratic in name, but not in trade, shade, or character. Now, my question to you is, can we sustain it? Today, the judiciary, I was reading Professor Odinkalu's today, what he wrote about Justice Agim. I think the judiciary should be crying. I think she just buried their head in shame and just disband the entire Supreme Court. The legislator, I felt that with the state of emergency, I think what the president even announced was not out of place. I just felt that he did what he thought he had to do. I felt the legislators should have done what they had to do. You understand? And it was clear that they didn't have the two-thirds. You understand what I'm trying to say? So the executive, of course, rarely, I mean, rudderless from the last election, we know that a lot of things are not in place. So that's why I'm happy on it that executive not particularly functioning, clearly rudderless, legislators just sharing money, judiciary at weakest whims and
My
caprice.
brother,
So can we
my,
sustain it? That's
my,
just my own. Can we? I'm worried. That's why I called you. Can we sustain it?
yeah, you see, let me take it from
Because those old people, sorry to one more time,
where
those
you
old
started.
people, they
Yeah,
will not do anything about it. They are beneficiaries of the system, direct
yeah,
and indirect
yeah,
beneficiaries of it. So
yeah.
can we really, really sustain it?
Let's look at it from that point. Yeah,
Mm,
that generation came back fresh from school and they got very big positions, which they were not equipped for. They didn't have the experience. You will agree that coming out fresh from college, you don't have enough experience to run some of these offices that they occupied. So they
mhm,
made the mistakes. Those mistakes are part of what we're facing today. And they go on to define the value structure, the values, the ethical conduct. It's cultural. They
mm,
helped build a culture in the country that has normalized all this, silly stuff that we see on a daily basis. It's like government comes up with some stupid action and people are kind of a large section of the country would even acquiesce to those things and it don't see there's no outrage, there's no discomfort because you hear it on a daily basis. It's been normalized. So these things have become cultural.
mm.
So isolating the judiciary or the legislature or the executive doesn't really address anything
So
because
what do
it's
we need
part
to
of
do?
one culture. So now it was like when Buhari was campaigning, for instance, I had
Mm,
friends who were saying, "Oh, this is a disciplined person," and and all of that. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's not as simple as that.
mm,
This man will come up with some disciplinary actions, and everybody will be whipped into line like it did when he was a military head of state. I said, "That's nonsense." For anybody even to be thinking about that, and you think, okay, it's going to lock up some crooked past political leaders, and that's going to change the mindset of the average Nigerian and make us less corrupt. That's a pipe dream. Anybody who has some modicum of intelligence will know that you don't change a culture or change the people's mindset overnight by just applying force. Yeah, we have to enforce our laws, and that's an area that we've been very weak at. But
mhm,
our leaders just don't have long-term vision. And that's one of the major problems we face. If you're going to change the culture of a people, it has to be long term. It will take at least one generation, maybe 25 years is like how they define a generation. You have a long-term, medium term, and short-term plan. Where do we start from? But you have to have an end goal in place and get experts to design, the process. We're talking about values. We've lost all the values that we were brought up with. It doesn't matter anymore. Young kids will come online and display that they are shows, that they are prostitutes, and nobody sees anything wrong in that. Young men are going into 419 or going to trade human parts,
mm.
killing people, abducting people. And we hear it on a daily basis that it doesn't shock anybody anymore.
Absolutely.
There are no short-term fixes to this kind of mentality. It's a cultural thing. If we're going to change that, it has to be well orchestrated, it has to be well defined, and you need to get the experts to sit down and say, okay, how did we get here? How can we get back to where we were or turn this around? So we are talking about values, we're talking about ethical conduct at the individual level, at institutional level, at the collective societal level. So if you say, how do we address this? Education. And any political leader who doesn't pay that level of attention to re-educating our people does not come across to me as a serious leader. They don't know what they're doing. Because everybody is thinking that if I apply this policy, it will just turn the people around. We're grappling with insurrection at all levels, in all parts of the country. People are being killed in the southeast. They're being killed in the northeast. People are being abducted in the northwest. It's even happening in the southwest as well. The middle belt is not safe. Even the federal capital. So what are we talking about? And people think that they have this magic wand that they can just strike and everybody will turn around and change. Now, when you just analyze some of the policies that the government comes out with, and they think these are the magic strategies that will turn the economy around, economy has a major impact on our people. Buhari came with some crazy policies when he first arrived. We had a very serious shortfall in foreign exchange. And one of the first things he did was to ban domiciliary account. I'm like, what was that? What purpose was that supposed to serve? Then he came up with this single account, whatever. I can't remember what they called it then, that all government agencies and parastatals must put all their money in the central bank, where it would be lying there idle when the commercial banks were starved of funds that was running the economy. The direct effect of that was that millions of people lost jobs because businesses folded up. Who comes up with this kind of policies? Now look at the current government. They came up with policies that further impoverished the people. What kind of economic policy is designed? You say you want to design economic policies that will bring about development. How does development happen? We are talking at the lowest level, the well-being, socioeconomic well-being of the individual. And that's a function of them being able to, be productive in the economy, work and get some earnings to make themselves and their families comfortable. Now, you come up with a policy that makes it difficult for businesses to function. And when businesses are not able to function, they fold up. And when they fold up, people lose their jobs. And when people lose their jobs, they are not able to feed themselves and their families. And then we are surprised that crime is rising. We are surprised that kids are going to vices. Because people are trying to survive. I don't think the average girl who's an Olosho wants to be an Olosho. But when you are confronted with problems around your survival, being able to survive till the next day, you will do whatever it takes to survive.
Ade, let me ask you this. Sorry to interject you.
The case for these young people who are doing all of that, but we can trace the causes.
Okay, what's the origin? Let's trace the causes. That's what I was going to ask you. Let's trace it. Where did it start from? Because I'm sure you know. Yeah, I'm sure you know that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. So the problem is actually cultural.
Yeah, that's why I said the cultural thing started with that generation that you defined earlier that didn't have the experience to lay these foundations. And I would say, as much as I respect Baba Obasanjo, he made a colossal blunder. Terrible mistake.
What was the blunder?
When he had the second chance to rule Nigeria as a democratically elected president, it was more or less coming up on a clean slate. The democratic process was being reintroduced to the leadership system in Nigeria. And he had the opportunity to lay some fundamental ground rules, creating institutions that were independent of the influence of the executive, for instance. Tearing this nonsense constitution apart and birthing a new constitution that would be, designed by the people and for the people, that will be true to the words that's inserted into the constitution, as against the 1999 constitution, which is a useless piece of paper, in my opinion. That is part of the problems we are facing. Obasanjo had that single opportunity. He had the experience at that time, as against when he first ruled as a young person. He had been in government, he had interacted at very high levels across the globe, international organizations.
He came from prison to be president.
So he came from prison, of course, but
yeah,
and that was part of the experience.
Yeah, and in fairness, it's the best president we've ever had from 1960 to date. I mean, I agree, could have done more, but it's the best we got.
Well, you see, when you say he's the best president,
unfortunately,
because of course, unfortunately, because most of the presidents we've had have performed below par, So you will give it to them that, okay, some of them were relatively inexperienced when they became president. But Obasanjo had held that office 20 years before, when he handed over in 1979, came back in 1999, 20 years after. I would have expected that it would, as a more experienced, reflecting on the mistakes it may have made and the lost opportunities it may have had in the first time around, lay the basic foundations. But there's this tendency, you see, I talked to some of our people about, okay, in the diaspora, it's not uncommon to say Nigerians are go-getters and this and that, and why can't we go back home and turn things around? They believe that, the world believes that Nigerians are very smart people. And in my analysis, what I think drives the average Nigerian is that individualistic tendency that's also part of our culture. Now, when you look at we Yoruba people growing up, I know you would recognize some of these statements that our parents will make, or that you will be the leader and you will not be subservient to your peers and things like that. We have that culture where we are driven to be competitive and to be better than our peers. And we demonstrate that at all levels. And that's why we think less of collective benefits or collective effects of our actions. The average Nigerian is far more individualistic than their peers across the world, because we are driven to be greater than all our peers.
Yeah, but another interjection here, but those that have collaborated, I've spoken to people that have collaborated, that have tried to work with people to synergize, and they all have stories of getting their fingers burnt. Now, in the diaspora, it does look like, and it seriously does look like it's actually safer sometimes when you go it alone than
and that's because the average Nigerian first looks for what benefits me rather than what benefits the group.
The collective.
And that's also a cultural thing. For you to have the kind of culture that would drive development, you need to look at collective goals, collective aspirations, collective agenda, and key into that, contributing your own quota. But the average Nigerian is looking for, how does this benefit me? That's why somebody who is agreeing with everything we're saying is given an appointment to serve in government in Nigeria, and they seem to turn around within 1 month, and you won't be able to recognize them. Why? Because they fit into that. Your people are expecting you to bring benefits to the family, or you need to go and show.
Corrupt stealing is normal then.
They normalized it. That's it.
Yeah.
And
so that's the culture. That's the culture.
That has become a part of the culture.
No, it's fair to say we're inherently dishonest.
we are not inherently dishonest. I wouldn't say that. I won't
Yeah.
go that far. But our culture
I'm the
drives
one
us.
saying that. Yeah.
I know our culture drives us to be
Mm.
so.
Okay.
Because if you come back to your hometown from wherever you live in Lagos or in the
Mhm.
diaspora, and you're not able to show that you built a mansion or you drive a nice car,
Mhm.
you're considered a
Yeah,
failure.
nobody. Yeah, even in your church, even in your
In your,
mosque.
in your church, exactly.
Yeah.
So those are part of the cultural things that it starts with education.
Mm.
But when you just look at the budget of the government, how
Mm.
much do they pay into the education bucket? How do they fund education? What are they even looking at the curriculum to determine how they fit into a vision of a better Nigeria? Are they teaching useless information that's not going to impact anybody? Everybody's just talking about self. You must be great. You must be a good lawyer. You must be a good doctor. How does that skill that you acquire fit into the larger agenda? Nobody's addressing that. So if we have 100 million lawyers in Nigeria, what does that do to us? The country will collapse. We need different kinds of skills. So our education should be keyed into the kind of skills that we need to develop the country. Nigeria graduates thousands of engineers on a yearly basis, yet you want to construct a footbridge, you go to bring Chinese.
Mm.
Is that not madness?
Let me tell you
That's not
something that is also pricking my conscience, something that I stumbled on 2 weeks ago, and to me it's a looming disaster. All this in America, for example, you go to African markets, to buy Gary, all these things. I realized that the Asians are selling those same foodstuff, African foodstuff, and it's now cheaper. And I
because
mean, they're not bringing it from Africa, they're bringing it from China, from Cambodia,
yeah,
from
yeah,
Vietnam.
yeah, yeah,
So even
yeah.
in the diaspora, we're losing the, the
No,
market.
you see, I saw a video
Hmm.
of a massive industrial complex that was just committed to producing Gary in China. A video of mass production of Gary in
Hmm.
China. And who eats Gary? Africans, majorly Nigerians.
Hmm.
Why should China be producing Gary in China? It would have been better if they were producing Gary in Nigeria. They
Hmm.
would still make money, but they would employ some of our people. But they've even taken the manpower aspect of that production, process to China. It's just crazy. And none of our leaders is worried about this. They don't think there's
You
anything
hit the right
of
word now. You hit the right word, leadership. You've been
it's
saying it,
leadership.
but not hitting it. How do we get the requisite leadership? I mean, number one, our elections are not free and fair. I've always said it. They used to be free before,
My,
but not
my,
fair. Now they are
my
not
brother,
free, they are not fair. How do we
my
get the right
brother,
leadership?
my brother, a lot of us went to school, but not a whole lot of us are really educated. No, we're not enlightened enough to be taking those decisions. Democracy is the best form of government. It's not perfect. In a situation where people are not well educated and impoverished, it's difficult for you to have a functional democracy.
Mm.
Our people are not well educated and they are poor. So you can easily manipulate them. Either you go give them brown envelopes, 5,000 naira, Gary, or, the hungry man is thinking about how to have the next meal. If you have 3 children at home, you don't know how to feed them, and somebody says, oh, sell your vote for 5,000 naira, you won't think twice. So when they say democracy or poverty has been weaponized, that is a statement of fact. That is also exploited. But if we can educate our people to understand the connection between their electoral choices
Mm.
and their life experiences, they may be able to translate, to overcome that temptation of taking the 5,000 or the bag of Gary, the small 1 kilogram bag of Gary, whilst they sell out their future or the future of their kids. So there is no aspect of Nigerian life that can develop without the requisite education. So that and you begin to wonder, if successive governments continue to reduce or not pay enough attention to education, is that a deliberate act? Now, this government came up with student loans and all whatnot. Is that what we need to do at this point in time? We have millions of Nigerians who have gone through school, but they don't have jobs. Now you are having young people go take out loans to go to school, and they come out of school, there are no jobs. How do they pay the loans? It just does not make any sense. So you begin to wonder who thinks for these people. We know that most of our political leaders don't think. They don't, it's like they don't have enough time to think about Nigeria. They will think about their girlfriends. They will think about how to steal money. They will think about how to go to parties and go and have nightclubs and carry all their Olu shows and stuff. There's just 24 hours in a day. Where is the time to think about Nigeria? Even if they wanted to. People would invite them to social engagements. You see them at parties every Saturday in and out. Where do they have time to think about Nigeria? So they now appoint aides to think for them. But the aides are doing the same thing. You know, the president wants to visit one small factory in Ogun State. He'll be accompanied by 10 governors, by 11, 12 commissioners. PAMSECs are there. All these people are supposed to be serving Nigerians, who are being paid by Nigerians, who are supposed to be doing their work. They're out following the president around. When the commissioner goes around, you see hundreds of people following him. So how do we get service for the money that they get? We pay for their accommodation, we pay for their transportation, we pay for their healthcare, we pay for everything when they're in office. But what quality service do we get? They don't have time enough to think about us, to think about the country. So why would anybody think the country will function? It won't function because nobody's there to do the job.
Let me chip in something. Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of the things you've said, and the people in power today have said all these things you are saying. As a matter of fact, I mean, when you look at issue of the legislative rascality, the issue of state of emergency, I'm sure you remember that Bola Tinubu, the current president rather, had really fought against it. And it does look like everything he fought against is doing exactly those same things while in power. So I've seen governors, people when they were ordinary citizens, say things, and it's not like everybody gets there and it changes. I've seen diasporans say we need to get diasporans involved. And I've seen one or two get appointed, win election, and for all intents and purposes, we're actually worse off. You understand?
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
why it might not be fair on Nigerians. Why I always say, culturally, I think we're just inherently dishonest. That's our, you understand?
It is a
You know,
cultural thing. It is a cultural
it's a
issue.
cultural problem. If I ask you, okay,
Yeah.
let me ask you
But,
this.
but
Give
but you
me
see,
three
the thing is
people
this.
that are role models. Three role
No, now,
models in
now,
Nigeria.
okay, before I go to that, you will
Okay.
recall, at least for my generation, when
Yeah.
I was in primary school, I wouldn't dare bring home a pencil that my parents did not buy for me. I would have to explain where I got it from. That was where we came from. Then we got into an era where, you know, a current situation, a secondary school child drives home a Mercedes Benz and parents are hailing them. I heard a story of parents bribing kindergarten teachers so that their kids, their kindergarteners, could get awards for their performance. That is the level to which we have degenerated to.
You're buttressing my point.
I understand that. But no, but
We're
when you
all
say
guilty.
but when you say we are inherently corrupt, we have bought into this mindset because of what our leaders, or the attitude of our leaders. When your leadership is bereft of, you know, values, they're unethical on their day-to-day activities, it percolates down all the way to the grassroots. And that is what we're experiencing. So I see it more of a leadership problem. That's why we need to get the leadership issue right. We need to look for people who are not, some people just want power for power. They may have good intentions. Like I strongly believe that Buhari had good intentions, but did he have the experience to manage a country as complicated as Nigeria? Definitely not. Two, the current leadership. I was in Lagos when Tinubu was governor, and he did some great things, but they are over bloated, in my opinion. There wasn't any, head shaking or fundamental change that it brought. Lagos State still has a very, very high number of unschooled children.
Absolutely.
If at the state governorship level, you are not able to solve the problem of education, there's no way someone like me would believe in you, because you're not solving the fundamental problem. It's not the
And it's
number
not
of
difficult,
bridges.
actually.
It's not about the number of bridges. If you are, particularly when you are giving these contracts to build bridges to foreigners, you're not developing our people. We should have at a main focus, development of human capital. And that starts with education. It is the people who will build the bridges and build the industries. But you're not training your people. You're, looking for foreigners to come and build basic stuff. Today, we can't build roads. I've been to places around the world, and I work on roads that were built over 1,000, maybe 2,000 years ago. What should be a big deal about building roads? These were roads that were built with cobblestones, they didn't have asphalt and all this stuff that which is much easier to do. Cobblestones. I was in Turkey last year and I saw some roads. I was like, what? And they told me the history of those places. We can't do basic stuff. We have the most brilliant people in the world. We can't do basic stuff in our country.
So does that mean, you can't give what you don't have?
That is the point. You can't give what you don't have.
You can't give what you don't
and when you are, you see, the thing is, the primary drive is just to get power for itself. And they have this ego thing. I can do it. Only me can do it. And they get there and they now pretend as if, oh, we didn't know that the situation was as bad as this. Come on. Everybody knows how bad the situation in Nigeria is. You can't pretend not to know.
It's pathetic.
So to come and tell us that you were not prepared for the level of, okay, even if you were not prepared, we can assess the steps you're taking. And we're seeing that the steps you're taking are not going to take us forward. I still don't understand the economic theory that suggests that when people are losing jobs and businesses are closing down, the economy will start to grow. You have policies that are killing businesses, that people are losing jobs. People lose their purchasing capacity. They can't buy the goods and services that organizations produce. How do those organizations survive? If those organizations do not survive, they throw people out into the job market.
But are you also aware that, I want us to go to the issue of mentors or role models in the society. I will go back to that now, but are you also aware that our leaders are aware, Nigerian leaders, African leaders are aware that if the people are well educated and thoroughly enlightened, they won't get away with what they're doing right now. So it's actually intentional, in my opinion, that you weaponize poverty, you make people as unenlightened as possible.
You see, when there is a tendency to agree with that statement, and the implication of
that's what it looks like.
No, you see, there's a tendency to agree with that statement, but I will tell you the reason why I don't agree with it 100%.
Okay, go ahead. It's a discussion.
When you agree with that statement, it implies that these people are deep thinkers, that they have very high intellect, and they can, extrapolate into the future the effect of those kind of policies. But what I have observed in the political marketplace is that, hey, I get more recognition when I build physical stuff. I build a bridge. Hey, let's do a large commissioning, and they bring the bands and
Culture.
everything, you know. So, but when you invest in education, you're investing in the future. It's not readily visible. People don't really appreciate it in the immediate. And the average politician is thinking about the next election. It takes statesmen to think about the next generation. So if you have a statesman as a leader, you will see that they will focus more on education. And that is what somebody like Peter Obi did. He was, you'll find him always talking about education and healthcare. Human capacity is micro focused on building human capacity. That's why it kind of resonated with the young people. It's not, so when people come to attack him, how many bridges did he build? How many skyscrapers did he build? It wasn't, you know, given to all of that. And that's why some of us think he would have been a good person, a good president, thinking about the long term.
I think so too, actually. I think so.
So you see, so when you say you're arrogating to them intelligence that they don't have, when you say it's intentional, it's unintentional. They will not put money there because it doesn't help their political agenda. So they are better off building bridges. Like the former governor of Rivers State. It was commissioning bridges on a weekly basis. But what is the unemployment rate in that state?
Oh God, that guy is.
What's his impact in human capacity development?
Well,
nobody's talking about that. They'll tell him Mr. Project. Everybody wants to be Mr.
At a stage, they were tarring a kilometer of road in the southwest during those ACN days for #1 billion. So
yeah, and it's also one of the easiest ways to steal money, particularly when you have foreign contractors, you know, do this nonsense bidding that they did. You know, it's all fake. And you have the president also awarding multi-trillion-dollar projects without open bidding.
Process. Yeah. I mean, all those will make the Fourth Republic unsustainable eventually. The country is broke.
Oh, absolutely. You see, I didn't just want to be categorical about that. I tried, like I tell you, I'm an optimist, you know, but unfortunately, I'm starting to lose my optimism, the way things are going. It's very reluctantly so. I have to admit to myself, at the pace at which this government is going, something drastic needs to happen to turn things around. And unfortunately, the guys at the helm of affairs don't have the capacity to do that, because the trajectory by which they ascended to power does not even present the foundation for the kind of change of course. You know, when you pull people together, people who do not have the interest of the country at heart, so to speak. They will say it, they want it, but they don't have the capacity to articulate what could bring that development. But because it is politically expedient to have such people on your side, you pull them in. People like Wike, how does, you know, the old thing about Wike is that, okay, what you did in
it's just a talk. That's
just come and do the same thing.
It's just Wike is an enforcer. That's all. And that's what Nigerian politics, that's where it breeds. For you to be successful, you know, you have to be an enforcer. Yeah, those are the kind of values.
And be crooked.
And be crooked, yeah. So let's go to mentors, leaders. Do we still have those kind of leaders we can look up to in Nigeria? Do you know any 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Do you have names? People who can still look at, they might be alive, they might even belong to that generation we talked about, the generation that put us in this.
I can't see a whole lot of them in the political space.
Give us some names.
There may be maybe in the private sector. I don't know.
Okay.
I need to think about that. But when you think about the people who have held sway at the leadership in Nigeria politically, I think Babangida performed well, given the circumstances. You know, I not want to just go with the crowd and say, yeah, Babangida.
The
Yeah,
IBB that just wrote that not June 12th.
he annulled June 12th, which I
Mm-hmm.
think was a wrong thing to do. It was a mistake, a costly mistake for Nigeria as a whole. But in terms of the policies that his administration introduced into the body policy of Nigeria, he was transformational in so many regards. You know, the privatization process that he started, it had significant, you know, impact on the way Nigeria was, you know, developing at that time. You know, I belong to the age where my mom would ask me to go withdraw 2,000. I'd have to almost go with a match to the bank. So I saw that transformation. By the time I came to the United States, the banking system in Nigeria was much more sophisticated than what I met in the US in 2009. And I was so impressed. I know that, you know, there's so many things.
Okay, apart from IBB, who else? Who else? Who else?
No, maybe I should have mentioned Obasanjo first. You know, these are one-eyed people in the land of the blind, so to speak.
Yeah.
Obasanjo has the capacity. If
He
only
does, actually.
if only he could shed his ego, that tendency to think I'm the only one and it should just be me. And, you know, he's a true Nigerian. I know he believes in Nigeria, but you can't be right 100% of the time. If he could shed that and team up with people of like minds, it could lead the drive for the renaissance of Nigeria. I think Obasanjo teaming up with Babangida, they understand. Babangida was a leader who was constantly feeling the pulse of the country. He knew what was going on at the grassroots. And I analyzed most of his policies when he was in government, DFRI, MAMSA, even SAP. Strictly speaking, wasn't a bad
Cultural Adjustment Program.
Yeah, SAP wasn't a bad policy. Implementers took advantage of some weaknesses in that system, and we know the impact of the West and how all that played out. But we're still better off for it. I know they transformed.
You know why I asked you? Do you know why I asked you that question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted you to prove that we don't really have anybody to look up to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
oh yeah.
you know,
I totally.
I mean, OBJ,
You see.
I mean, that's it shows Nigeria is in trouble.
We don't have heroes in Nigeria.
Yeah, we are in trouble.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah, and one more thing, you see, all those elders that told our generation that don't steal, don't touch this, don't do this, don't do that. We discovered later that they were doing all those things. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They were doing it.
Yeah.
They were telling us, don't do this, don't do that. If you do this, if you do this, they were doing it. Honestly.
And that's why we need a cultural reorientation. That's where, if we truly want to commit ourselves to change and development, there needs to be a cultural reorientation. And a major part of that process will be forging a new constitution for Nigeria.
I agree. But we need a political will. We need, I mean, like I think it was Professor Utomi or Professor Odinkalu that mentioned in one of my programs that it's not just to have a constitution. You need to have a political decision. There's so many things outstanding. Do we want to live together? Do we want to achieve what educationally? In 1962, we had parity with a lot of the Asian countries, and we're even far ahead of them. Today we're nowhere, you know. All right, let me ask you. This is my last question for you, and I mean you've spoken well. I mean you know what you're talking about, and our problem is cultural. If we have to sustain the Fourth Republic, it's a tough call. It's looking unlikely. I do know something will give eventually. What it is, like I said, I don't know. Now I'll ask you this: what do you see from your crystal ball? What does the future tell you? Future of Nigeria political with the way we are going? That's my last question to you. You can take your time. I know it's a hydra. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's hydra-headed.
Yeah, if you had asked me
Right?
this
Bleak.
question, yeah, if you had asked me this question a
Mm,
few years ago, 2 years, 3 years ago, I would tell you that in any circumstance, it's one or two things.
mm,
Nigeria disintegrates and we go our separate ways, like
okay.
some agitators, have been driving, or the situation turns around and Nigeria becomes a great nation once again. And it's all will depend on how the leaders, in quote, how they can come together and agree, maybe at the political level, just like you said,
Mm,
to show the way. Unfortunately, some people think it is the desire of the followership that will drive the leadership to that position. And unfortunately, the kind of division that some of our political leaders have driven over the last couple of years, where you're now having the Igbos against Yorubas, Yorubas against Igbos, and things like that, it's difficult to get a consensus. People look at national issues through that ethnic prism, which which deprives deprives the Nigerians of the cohesion that is required to drive the leadership in the right direction. So we are now left with the leadership to come together and say, hey, enough of this nonsense. They carry all these titles and all these national awards. If anybody gives me the GCFR today, I'll toss it in the gutter because I don't understand. No,
Grand Commander of Federal Republic of the Federal.
why should anybody be proud to wear that toga?
Oh,
And
wow.
all the evidence you have is Nigeria the way it is.
Mm.
They drove Nigeria into the situation it is. So you are now showing yourself to be one of the people that drove Nigeria into the gutter, and you're showing your GCFR. It's a worthless award.
It is.
It just shows that our people lack shame, our leaders lack shame. So if they could come to that realization that, hey, look, enough is enough. This is too shameful. Let us find a way. The few years we have between now and the time we go on to meet our maker, let us do our best to turn this thing around. They could do that. That is the most reasonable thing I think anybody should do. If I were in Obasanjo or Babangida or anybody's shoes today, that is what I will be thinking about. How can we reverse this nonsense? And whatever it takes, they should give it their best shot before they leave, because they put us in this mess. In varying degrees, they contributed to this mess, and they should come together and give direction and put us on the right path. That is what I believe. So
yeah, very
so
wise
my
man.
principal, yeah, I don't see, my brother, look, I'm not proud to be in the same country with a governor who would declare almost a month's break from school for kids, all in the name of Ramadan.
For Ramadan. I mean, it's crazy.
What we need is to educate our future generations, not to keep them away from school, particularly in the North where kids are known not to want to go to school. The few ones that want to go to school, you deprive them of education because of some religious stuff. And the religious leaders too are not helping. It's just a multifaceted, everybody's it's all about self. What can I grab from the people? The political leaders are grabbing, the religious leaders are grabbing. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Unfortunate. Well,
It
it's a
is a
wrap
mess.
there, but I'm going to add something to it. I think that those guys you call the IBB, the ambassador, like they always, like we've said, when you say owners of Nigeria, it's no more a cliche. They really exist.
They
They are
do.
the ones. Honestly, I don't think Nigerians are going to have a revolution. It's not in our culture. We address the culture. It's not our thing. There's so much poverty in the land. But I think those owners of Nigeria, they know themselves. They're the only ones that can rectify the situation. A lot of them are in their dying days now. They don't have too much time left. The only thing they owe the country is to rectify the situation. How they
Absolutely.
rectify, I don't know, but the
I don't
onus is
know.
now on them. And they only have one shot at it, actually.
Oh
just to,
yeah, oh yeah. Just I agree. It's
yeah,
just one shot,
they should
one
just
shot.
get to work and do whatever they,
Yeah,
yeah.
Babangida,
Oh, BJ,
Abdul
Abdusalam,
Salam,
Gowon,
OBJ,
even
Gowon.
tier two
Yeah,
owners like
two, yeah,
Jonathan
yeah,
too,
yeah.
they
Like
their own.
the guy in
Dajuma,
Danjuma. Yeah,
Dajuma,
Danjuma.
yes.
Yeah,
Ali, so all those
Ali
guys,
Guzo.
yeah.
Bring all of them together. Hey,
They to
let's
come and
come
do something.
together.
Yeah,
If we
honestly,
want Nigeria to
it's
survive,
pathetic now. Honestly, it's
yeah,
shameful.
I totally
If
agree.
anybody had told me that Nigeria will come to this stage, I'll say, wow. I mean, it's really bad. It is bad. But Dr. Oriade, thank you for coming to Atlanta to discuss. Thank you for being our guest. I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm going to bring you back. I mean, I know you're busy. He's an IT guy, risk
Great,
management,
great, great
a
pleasure.
lawyer. You said what?
He said it's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much.
You're a
Thank you.
great mind. It's always a pleasure
Yeah, it's a
having these
discussion.
conversations with you.
We love Nigeria. We're just not proud of it right now. I mean,
It's
nobody
unfortunate.
should
It's
be.
unfortunate.
I mean, if I was reading Professor Dinkalo's article today about that the justice of the Supreme Court, Agbin, who gave a judgment and answered prayers that were not even part of the judgment. And he now sat with Wiki at University of Calabar, 25 years or 30 or some anniversary. And the pro-chancellor was the former emir of Kano, the deposed emir of Kano, who also got a judgment where Wiki's wife was part of the. I mean, it is
It's a
shameful.
mess. It's a
Yeah,
mess.
I think Bola Tinubu should really be worried. Honestly, I think he should be. If he's not worried that there's a fundamental problem, I mean, it's not good because some of us are Yorubas. I know in the past we've been judged based on Awolowo, what
Yeah,
Awolowo has done. And in the future, at the way things are going, Black Tinubu's time will come and go. And we will be judged based
by
on
his
Tinubu.
time.
Yes.
And it's very
We've
unfortunate.
lost that Awolowo merit now. That even in WAEC and JAM, Southwest is not number one again. You
No, no,
understand?
no.
We produced the first certificate-less president when the Southwest was the bastion
Yeah,
of education. I mean, it's so sad.
it's sad. It's
All
sad.
right.
It's sad. And like
Thank
you
you,
said,
Dr.
we can't give
Oriade.
what
Thank
we
you
don't
so
have.
much.
It's my pleasure.
I
Anytime.
appreciate you always.
Thank you, sir.
All right. All our viewers, 7 continents of the world, we say a big thank you. See you next week. Bye.